Hey guys, how are we doing tonight? Uh, Welcome to the new year again. We're about 2 weeks into it now. Uh, so, in my last video, we discussed the things you needed to sew with, okay? So, tonight I am going to do a video on pressing material, uh, getting it cut the size you need it, and sewing it together, and then sewing it onto uh, whatever you're working on at the time. Okay, we're working on a what's called a 9 patch. The quilt is made with what's called 9 patch squares. Each square in a 9 patch is 3 inches, and you have three in the top row, three in the middle row, and three in the bottom row. Thus, 9 patch. Okay, that's pretty easy to figure out. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to press our material and then get ready to cut some squares. So I'm going to turn the camera here a little bit. This is my iron and my ironing board here, and I'm going to turn my iron on. You want to, I always set my iron on the cotton setting. It's totally up to you, but with most material, the cotton setting is the best. Okay, so let's get started. Let me grab my material. Okay, now this is a piece that I'm going to be cutting some squares out of to show you how to cut them. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to lay it on our ironing board. Make sure that you have it flat. Okay, now when I press my material for a quilt, I use starch. That way it helps it stay smoother. Okay, any kind of starch will work. I use what's called speed starch, but any kind will work. Okay, so we're just going to go over this. By the way, just to let you know, you can always tell when your iron is hot enough. You can get your finger wet, and if you hear a sizzle, it's hot. If you don't, it's not ready. But 9 times out of 10, it heats up pretty quick. So, okay, now we have this piece of fabric ironed. So we're going to turn our iron off. And I do this with all the material that I make quilts with because you want to make sure that they're ironed down smooth. So when you go to cut, you have a smooth cut and you're not cutting through wrinkles or it comes out crooked because, it's not smooth enough. Okay? So now what we're going to do is I'm going to take my camera over here. I'm going to set it on my table here. This is my cutting table, or part of it anyway. All right, we're going to move this out of the way. I'm going to bring this piece of fabric over here. Okay, hopefully y'all can see that. Hope there's not too much light shining on it. Okay, now when I mark material to cut, I use tracing chalk. Okay, can y'all see that? On a lighter color material, you want to use a darker color trace marker. Okay, I'm going to use a dark blue. This is yellow material. So what I'm going to do, if I can pick it up, okay, I'm going to mark. Now, we need 3 by 3 inch squares. Okay, right here is 3-inch square mark. So mark it right there. Okay, then we're going to turn the ruler and bring our fabric down. And this is just one of my favorite rulers. That's why I use it all the time. Okay, we're going to go from the edge. We're going to put the 3 on the edge. Make sure it's on the other edge, lined up even. And we're going to mark here. Okay. So, now what we're going to do is we're going to cut to that mark. Then that mark. And you have a 3 by 3 inch square. Okay, now I already have some prepared, so that's the only one I'm going to cut out of this. But what I wanted to show you was how to measure it to cut it. Okay, so let's go in here. As I told you before previously, one of my sewing machines is in my dining room. So we're going to go in here. To sew. Okay, now I already have some squares prepared. All right, this again was just an example to show you how you measure it. I'm going to put it over here. Now this is a 9-patch square block that I already have sewn together. Either way you turn it, it's going to be 9 inches. Okay, as long as you cut it straight. So I'm going to lay this back over here. Now I'm going to show y'all how to sew one together. I have to grab my scissors. I'll be right back. Sorry about that, guys. I forgot to grab them. Okay, so, and again, this is my sewing machine here that I'm using. This is a Brother sewing machine. It works very well. I've had it for a long, long time. I love it. It couldn't be any better. So we're going to turn it on. Now, again, I already have some squares prepared, some squares cut. So, these are pattern squares. I don't know if y'all can see those. They both have a pattern, okay? Now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these. Then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 of these. Okay. These are 3 by 3 inch squares. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of these and one of these. We're going to put them right sides together. If you look on the back, if you turn it around, see there is no pattern on the back of these, okay? They are face to face, right sides up. Now, we're going to put fairly close to the edge of that, okay? Then we're going to sew 2 stitches. We're going to do a back stitch. Then we're going to sew the seam, okay? And I know it's hard to see in this light what my seam is. So in just 1 second, I'm going to move the camera where y'all can see my seam, okay? Now, we have these 2 sewn together. So we're going to take another one of these. We'll put it like with that one, right sides together, okay? Make sure it's lined up right, because if you don't, it won't turn out right, okay? We're going to put it here. Bring your needle down. The needle, you bring it down like that when you're beginning to sew a square or any kind of material, because it helps hold it into place. And if you're trying to adjust your material and this arm is down, the needle's up, your material goes all over the place. Okay, so that just helps hold it when you start on it. Okay, now I'm going to move the camera over this way. Okay. Now, I don't know if y'all can see the front of that or not. I'm going to turn this light off because it's kind of bright right there. Okay. Now, if you can see that, okay, I have that set. This is like a third of a seam, third of an inch right here. we're going to do nothing. Okay? So we're going to turn this back around. I'm going to turn it back on because if you turn the light off, the machine goes off. So, okay. All right, so we're going to go sew a couple stitches, go in reverse, a couple back stitches, then do our seam. Okay. And there's your first row of a 9 patch. Okay. I always want to cut your threads off. Don't leave them hanging because they can get in the way and can be messy. All right, so there's our first row of a 9 patch. Now on the second row, we're going to take one of these and one of these. Okay. Put them right sides together. Line them up. Put it in your machine. Again, it's about, I have it on about a 1/3 inch. Okay. That usually works the best for this kind of pattern. All right, so we're going to do a couple of stitches, a couple of back stitches, and we're going to sew that together. Okay. Cut our threads. Okay. Now, we're going to take another one of these, and we're going to put it like that, right sides together. Make sure it's lined up. And I can't say enough, you have to make sure that it's lined up, because if it isn't, then it's not going to turn out right. Okay? All right. So here we go. We're going to bring our needle down. Make sure it's lined up. A couple stitches. A couple back stitches. Then our seam. Okay? Cut our threads. Now, there's your second row of your 9 patch. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take our first row of our 9 patch. We're going to take our second row and we're going to put them together, right sides together. Okay? Again, you're going to make sure they're lined up. Okay? Put your needle down. You're going to do a couple of back stitches. Uh-oh. My needle just came unthreaded. Give me just 1 second. That was my fault. I accidentally hit that thread with my finger. So I have to rethread my machine. This won't take just a second. I always get the end of my thread wet because it's easier. Okay. Now it's rethreaded. All right, and again, you have your first and your second row. You're going to put them right sides together. Make sure they're lined up and that your seams meet on both sides. Okay? So you have your seam here and you have your seam here. You want to make sure that those two seams are lined up in the same place. Okay? So we're going to go a couple of stitches, a couple of back stitches, then we're going to start our seam. Now, after you get the first square sewn, you want to bring your second one. You make sure it's lined up all the way down. Make sure your seams match. Okay? Okay. Trim our threads. Okay. There you have your first and your second row of a 9 patch. Okay. I'm going to lay that down for a minute. We're going to do our third row that goes on there. Okay. One of these and one of these. Right sides together. And it doesn't really matter which way you turn the square because it's a 3 by 3 square. So no matter how you sew it together, it's going to look right, okay? So we lined up, a couple of stitches, a couple of back stitches, sew our seams, okay? Cut our threads. Well, okay. Now, we're going to have this square and this square. Right sides together. Line them up. Make sure they're lined up right. Okay. Couple stitches. Couple back stitches. And sew our seam. Okay. Cut your threads. We're going to sew this row to what we already have sewn together. Now, this is your third row here, okay? Get it turned around. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. Now, you're going to sew those two rows together, right sides together. You're going to line it up. And again, make sure your seams are lined up the same on both sides. That way you know that it's lined up right, okay? Couple stitches, couple back stitches. Make sure it's lined up. Sew your seam. Now, make sure these two are lined up. And sew your seam. Okay? Cut your threads. And you have what's called a 9-patch block. You have 9 squares, 3 by 3 inches sewn together. That's a 9-patch block, okay? Now, I have one that I already had sewn together that goes on the quilt I'm working on. We're going to take these 2 squares, okay? We're going to do right sides together, just like we did our row. You'll make sure your seams are lined up on both sides, okay? We're going to go a couple stitches, couple back stitches, and we're going to sew it together, okay? You're going to make sure it's lined up all the way down, okay? Because again, if you don't, that can be disastrous. Okay? Cut your threads. Cut your thread. Now you have 2 sewn together. Okay? Now I'm going to show you what we're going to do with this. Okay, let's turn this off. Got to go in here because I have the quilt spread out in here. Okay, so y'all can see it. All right. All right. Now, I don't know how well y'all can see that from there, but this is what I already have done on this quilt. Okay. I don't know how well y'all can see that, but let's turn. Okay. That's the edge. All right. So what we're gonna do when you get ready to sew these together, okay? The 2 that we just sewed together, there's actually 9 of these in one row. So you have 2 here, so you need 7 more for the next row. But what you do when you get your row made, you're going to line it up with that row, okay? Then you're going to sew this row onto this row. Now, a 9-patch quilt is one of the easiest quilts you can do, okay? It's simple, it's easy, you can use whatever colors you want. A lot of people call it a patchwork, you know, because it does kind of look like it's just patched together, which is great, you know. I mean, it's awesome, okay? And it's one of the easiest ones you can make, all right? Um, I enjoy doing the 9-patch because I enjoy the different colors. Again, it's totally up to you, whatever you choose to do, okay? Now, in our next video, we are going to be getting this in the quilting frame. And I'm going to show you guys how to quilt it, okay? That is, to me, the most relaxing part. I love quilting. I love the finished product, okay? So that will be our next project on this, okay? So I will see y'all next week, and I hope you all have a great evening. If you like what you see, subscribe to my channel and tell your friends and hit the like button. And I will see y'all next week. Thank you, and y'all have a great evening.